Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso. I'm the creator and host of our show, and today we are excited to welcome a gentleman that's going to talk to us about how we raise our game on influence. His name is Josh Elledge. Now, let me do a little intro, and then I'm going to ask Josh to tell us a little bit more about himself. So first of all, Josh is the founder and CEO of UpMyInfluence. I love that title. He's also the chief executive angel for savingsangel.com. We'll talk a little bit about that. He's a syndicated TV host and newspaper columnist with over 2,000 media appearances. Josh believes everyone has a message to share that can positively impact the world. He also helps entrepreneurs with their influence and turning them into authority experts so they can achieve more sales, more revenue, and opportunity. And that really is the foundation of our show, is helping successful entrepreneurs grow. So Josh, welcome to our show today.
Pat, thanks so much for having me.
So I did the intro, and I always ask people, I always have a little fun and say, okay, that's what's on paper. Tell us who the real Josh is.
Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about what I do. And what I do is, I have a real heart for business leaders. We work with a lot of consultants, in fact. I would say, one of the greatest joys I have is, working with that consultant that's already got some decent authority behind them. And they're at 6 figures, and we work with them and get them to 7 figures. And, when we find the right fit, our model is really that of an investor, and that we're looking for great opportunities to align, to joint venture, have a great strategic alliance, and ultimately do some great business together. And so, because, if you're a good steward in business, if you're illogically generous, if you've worked very hard on your authority, business is actually quite easy. And anybody that tells you to not focus on those things, that's just a lot harder. So I like inspiring people to do business the easy way.
I love that. Well, so Josh, tell us let's start with your entrepreneurial journey. How did you get to where you are today as an influencer and a person who's got a great following?
It starts with selling candy in 8th grade and getting in trouble for it. So I would go and buy, candy for a dime and sell it for 50 cents. So, not a bad profit margin. From there, I was in the U.S. Navy for 5 years as a Navy journalist, was inspired and met Adrian Cronauer from Good Morning Vietnam fame, who Robin Williams portrayed. And he really inspired me into, the power we have, or the sacred obligation we have to serve audiences, and that audiences are why we're here, why we do what we do. Particularly when you're given the gift, or you create the gift for yourself of leveraging a platform. From there, went to school, went to college, studied. I wanted to be a love doctor on the radio. In fact, that was my goal for quite some time. But I started a string of businesses, and 6 in a row kind of failed at some point. But it was my 7th business venture, Savings Angel, that ended up doing well over $6 million in revenue, and we spent $0 in advertising. UpMyInfluence came about just simply because I was doing a lot of pro bono work in our local startup community, working with veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned business owners, just being of service, serving on boards, pro bono workshops, a lot of pro bono mentoring. And, I was teaching people, all about getting in the media and why that's so important and why it's so good for your authority, and how it will really help everything in business just work a lot easier. So we live in this swipe left, swipe right world, and people are going to check you out before they do business with you. And if they really can't find much, it's going to be a lot harder. If they see a lot of good stuff and they see that you've been out there serving, doing good, well, it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to improve your conversion rate and shorten your sales cycles. And that's important because, when that happens, you make more money and you get to have a greater impact in the world.
Absolutely. So talk to us about Savings Angel. Basically, you created a platform for people to save money. I love that.
Yeah.
So tell us how that came about.
Well, so there's kind of two parts to Savings Angel. There's the membership part, which we no longer operate. And so, but what we had done, and this was at the very beginning, and we had a really, really great run with it. But we would help people cut their grocery bill in half. It worked. So someone would pay us $20 a month. And what we would do is we would help them save $300-400 a month at the grocery store by combining the best coupons with the best sales. Because if you could do that, then you get your Cheerios for 50 cents a box and stuff like that. So moms in the suburbs really loved us, but eventually the couponing craze kind of waned. And so by then I was already doing consulting and stuff on the side. And it really just kind of led to the great work that we get to do with UpMyInfluence today. So today Savings Angel still exists as a media brand. I still do a syndicated newspaper column now for 12 years. I've done getting close, I think about 300 and some podcast episodes for the Savings Angel show. And I'm known as the guy who can get you a deal, hookup, or upgrade on anything in life. So it's a fun persona that I've been able to do, but obviously, as you could tell, I'm pretty passionate about the business side of things because I know what it's like to start a company and not know where those customers are going to come from. Right. And I also want to know what it's like to not have any budget to do that. Right. And then maybe you try things and those things don't work. Again, listen very carefully to this conversation because success leaves clues. I've learned a few things and I'm happy to pass it along, and you don't need to pay me a dime. Please. I'm good.
So I love that. So, a lot of our listeners, because of my following, are small to medium-sized companies, entrepreneurs. It might be just themselves. It might be a team of 12 or 15 or 20. And media may not be their skill set. It may not be where they are right now. So what would be a few steps that you would recommend for people to jump into becoming that influencer, getting the media opportunities?
Yeah, well, you got to start small. And so as much as I'm sure you'd love to be on the Today Show or like name the biggest podcast you could think of, and like it's your dream to be a guest there, like you can get there, but it's going to take you a few years and you have to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, you're going to suffer through a lot of frustration. So what I want you to do is I want you to focus on making yourself presentable to platforms, to podcasts, to YouTubers, to other influencers, folks that have a decent following on social media. And those are the people you want to collaborate with. And again, you are going to have to start small. You just are. You're just not that newsworthy if you're just kind of in the earlier stages of business. You launching version 1.3x of your new SaaS platform is just not newsworthy in the grand scheme of things. It's important to you, right, but you don't have the objectivity of audiences. And so what you really want to do is, number one, yes, absolutely focus on your authority. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's really simple. If I were to do a Google search on you, what would I find? So you are going to just need to be out there serving as an expert in your area and doing it every chance you can. When you reach out and you're reaching out to people that have a platform, you have to do so with no objective or no ulterior motive that, I'm only doing it because I want to make sales right now, right? You have to be willing to be, again, illogically generous with your time. And if you'll do that enough, you will get rewarded. And where you plant your seeds is not necessarily where you reap your harvest, but amazing opportunities will result, because of, the pro bono work that I did in our local startup community. There would be no UpMyInfluence if it weren't for that. But I started working alongside a number of other mentors, and they're like, hey, can I hire you? Like, you seem really good at what you do. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And so those are the kind of opportunities when you're just out in the trenches serving. And so it sounds scary. It sounds scary, right? Because you're not getting paid for it. You will. Yeah.
So I heard two things. After my 30th episode of this podcast, I shouldn't expect to be number one on the podcast platforms. That's a good thought, right? I love that. You also said something, though, which was, I think, key, is you're giving with at that point, not really expecting, however, down the road that giving is gonna pay off at some point.
Oh, it always will. It always. And so, imagine now, let's say that there's you and there's somebody else, right? And that person's like, like I'm working with this guru and we're doing paid ads and we're going to start selling and I'm going to be the sham wow guy, on a small scale. And it's going to feel like they are outpacing you out of the gate, right? And it's going to be like, what am I doing? I'm just out here doing this stuff, building my brand, helping people, and it doesn't feel effective, right? And then you start being generous and you start serving people that are at higher levels in business than you are, but you keep on doing it. And then at some point, that other dude who's in the hamster wheel, right, is going to like, okay, what now? And, or the algorithm changes and all of a sudden it's just not real, advantageous for them to spend, keep giving money to Mark Zuckerberg. Eventually you're going to get to a point, and think about this. Here's a great example. Imagine you're a local real estate professional.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
You've got a relationship with 300-400 people that all just love you, right? They appreciate you because you're generous, you're giving, like you provide value to people who are not ready to buy with you, but you keep on doing stuff for them anyway. What do you imagine your life would be like if 300 to 400 people, if anybody asked them, who knows a local realtor? Man, that Josh Elledge guy, he's awesome. He's, he works with great people. Is like always giving back to his community. That's what you want, because if you can get there, you'll really never have to advertise ever again in your life. You already have enough authority and you have social proof of people out doing your work for you. This is how business gets done today. Yeah. It's word of mouth. You cannot be a crappy business with a bunch of ads. You can't get away with it. You can short term, you can't long term. No longer do we have that. And again, I'm speaking, 14 years as a consumer expert, studying and leading on consumer behavior. And I can tell you that audiences have never been more skeptical. I don't care who you sell to. I don't care if you sell B2B, B2G, B2 alien, whoever you're selling to, we're all consumers.
Yes.
And we all follow the same rules. And that is that if we learn about you, hopefully it's through some sort of warm connection, right, or recommendation, we're going to check you out. And if your website looks terrible, if you've got no Google, clout to speak of, if your social media looks terrible and your profile image is like, it's just a mess, it looks like amateur hour. I mean, look, you got to start from somewhere. So Don't feel bad. But what I want you to do is every week, I want you to invest an hour to 2 just on your perceived authority. Like, how do you come across on, Google, your website, your email signature, your business profile image? Like, these are all things you can work on, and they will really matter, because if you have this stuff dialed in and then you reach out to your local TV station, and I'll explain why you want to do that. You don't want to do it necessarily for the audience. The audience is just okay. You do it for the authority, because if you have, you're a sought after expert by Forbes, Inc., entrepreneur, Fast Company, whatever, right? And you're quoted, and that's your bag. Like, I'm not saying local news is your bag, but it's good authority. There's media you do for visibility, and there's media you do for authority. Most media you do is really for the authority, because honestly, the audiences are not that big. The audiences are bigger on social media, working with some influencer or whatever. But the influencer is not going to work with you if you look like amateur hour. So that's why you have to do the authority stuff, so that then you can do the stuff that really gets you in front of lots of audiences.
Right. So you said 2 things there. One of them takes me back to, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Frank Crenity on our last podcast, and he's an auto car salesman in Springfield, PA. He sells 120 to 150 cars a month. The average car salesman sells 6 to 8. I mean, this guy's a rock star. And he talked about that reciprocal relationships in the community. And so, and he following exactly what you're talking about. The other thing that you said that I love, Josh, was that you in fact, you talked about it in building up Savings Angel, where you spent $500 in advertising to build 6 million.
No, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, that was like, that's over a course of like 14 years. Right. I think we maybe boosted some posts, and we were like, okay, I don't know why we did that. That was a waste of time and effort.
Well, what you said though, when you talked about the things that you could do with your email signature and all that stuff, that's zero cost. That doesn't cost anything.
No.
And that was really a big point you made there. Let me ask you this. What's the difference between, and I think you touched on a little bit, between authority and influence?
Right. So you can be an influencer with zero authority. And similarly, you can have lots of authority, but no influence. So authority, usually we see that comes from power on high, right? So let's say we have an association that if you have an association with Harvard Business School, for example, right? And someone says, well, Harvard Business School invited me to be a guest lecturer. What you're doing, that's authority. Because that's someone who has, to begin with, has high perceived authority, a prestigious university, another major, person, like, for example, me speaking for the Tony Robbins organization, most people, in my space, they know who Tony Robbins is. And they're like, well, yeah, if those guys invited you to speak, chances are, they invited you beyond the velvet rope. So that's authority, regardless if there was only 10 people in the room. That's not a lot of visibility, but that's massive authority, right? Similarly, visibility or influence, you can have influence, right? But this would be like Melissa Milano, the famous example, recommending this parenting book, and she sold 0 copies of the book because her audience, like, okay, that's irrelevant to me. So it's not, I've got clients and buddies that run YouTube channels that get, they make 50 grand a month in YouTube revenue because they have a big audience because they do very popular content around like Marvel, Star Wars, that sort of thing. But that said, like, thankfully they make the money there because otherwise, people aren't paying them for their services. So I believe that the goal should be you want to keep working on both. And I'll tell you that what I find is that it's usually a little easier to get the influence if you have some good authority and you otherwise care about audiences. Like you can deliver okay. Influence is a lot easier than if you got zero authority and you're like, I'm just going to try to be an influence. So the reason that those other influencers, because Marvel is an authority. So at some point we're like, well, what is it? Or, you could be a lifestyle social media influencer. And yeah, I mean, you can make money, but it's like, what are you an authority in? And so that sort of thing, you can have one bad influencer, like you could do something bad and it could fall apart on you overnight.
Exactly.
So just some considerations there.
So what's the number, from your perspective, what's the number one job of an entrepreneur? And maybe what are a couple things that they should really focus on?
Yeah, number one job of an entrepreneur. Let's go old school. Let's go back to Michael Gerber. Your job is to what? Job is to grow your business. Because if you're not growing your business, who is? And so what that means is, as much as you'd like to outsource, sales, growth, that sort of, I mean, if you're the founder, CEO, that's your main thing. Like a lot of times, the people get into a business because they love SEO, for example. They're really good at it. And while you would like to spend all of your time doing that, it's not your job. Go ahead and do it at the beginning. And everything's going to be inefficient. And you've created a little bit of a lifestyle role for yourself, a little lifestyle business for yourself. And that's fine, by the way. If you want to be a freelancer or a contractor, a solo, and you're happy there, awesome. But if you're a business owner that wants to grow and scale your business, that's where you need to put all of your, nearly all of your time and attention. Bring in great operators, because most founders of companies are absolutely the visionaries. They have the ideas. They're constantly, coming up with new ideas. They're networking, they're meeting people, they're out on the stages, they're evangelizing, and that's where they belong. They're out to change the world. So like I said, I love doing what we do right now. Like I love podcasting, but I can't, and I'm good at it. Like but I'm not going to be the podcast host we have 60 clients. There's no way I'm going to run a podcast for each of them. So, when you go to Up My Influence, you're like, what's he talking about? I don't understand. Just go to www.upmyinfluence.com if you want to kind of see what we do. And by the way, if you're early stage entrepreneur, I got nothing to sell you. So don't worry if there's like sometimes you go to people's website and they're like, opt in here and give me your email and here's a $5.99 thing. Get out of here with that and just give it away. I made the conscious decision long ago to just not sell to early stage entrepreneurs.
Right.
Simply because when I was starting, there were people that were very generous with me. And I will spend my life being, again, illogically generous with other people that don't potentially have anything to give me back.
Understand. Well, Josh, you're giving us some great stuff. So let me ask you, what's the best advice that you've ever been given that hopefully you followed?
Yeah. So, I can point to, I think the biggest thing for me was truly understanding what sales is. And sales is this where we feel in our gut that we have a moral obligation to serve the world with the thing that we do. And that without our impact in the world, there are major consequences. And so therefore, what we want to do is not necessarily just make money. And so then we get into this, sales is just convincing people to buy stuff. It couldn't be further from the truth. And in fact, if that's what you believe sales is likely pretty hard for you. And you know what I'm talking about if you've ever been there. So sales really is service. How can I help this person? And you know what? They may or may not give me money. And I got to be okay with that. Amateurs convince, leaders sort. So if you have the mindset that, when you show up to a call, a quote unquote sales call, right? It's that I'm just here to provide the highest value I can. And if it's not a fit, it's okay. Because then if you value the relationship first, you'll never get a hard no. You're going to get a not me, not now, but let's see some other ways that we might be able to work together. Right. And I can always tell amateurs that aren't making very much money when they can tell that they've lost the sale and they just start burning bridges or whatever. They're like, okay. Or they either try to save the sale desperately, or they could tell that there's no money there. So then they're just kind of like, you could tell they immediately lose interest in the relationship. Yeah. I could tell you that is generally someone who's not doing very well.
Yeah, interesting. So I flipped this question upside down, and it always produces a great kind of aha moment. So what bad advice have you ever been given that hopefully you didn't follow?
Yeah, I would say the whole numbers game mindset, you see this a lot in the sales funnels world where it's just, people are numbers, just go ahead and spam. It doesn't matter because it works 1% of the time. I'd say for a few months there, I was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. And then I'm like, wait a minute, how would I feel if I were treated like a number? If I wasn't trusted in the way that a lot of typical funnel people treat their audiences, right? Where it's just all about metrics. And you got to measure, right, to make sure you're doing the right stuff. But, when you're talking about the value of a soul, like the value of a person, you could see that there's a big difference from what I talk about. So I would be very wary of that because consumers have never been more skeptical than they are right now. And if they can tell you just have sales on your breath, forget it. Like they're going to turn and run.
Yeah.
So you're not going to fool anybody. Audiences are just as smart, if not smarter than you. They know exactly what you're doing, right? And so if you don't have the cojones to give it away without asking, oh, listen, I'll give you this thing. I'll let you watch this video, but you're going to need to give me $19.99 first on the front end. That's like saying, like in dating, say, listen, I'll take you to the nice restaurant, but we're going to have to get to second base first, right? It's that kind of, that's horrible. That's a terrible example. And I'm sorry, that's a little offensive. But that's really what a lot of sales and marketing people do. Yeah. It's gross. It's really disgusting.
Yeah.
And we all know what you're doing. So what would happen instead if you just said, hey, here's my stuff, go enjoy it for free. You don't have to give me money. You don't even have to give me your email address. I trust you. I trust you. If you love it, you know how to get a hold of me. In fact, here's how to get a hold of me if that's what you want to do.
Sure.
But until then, I'm just going to keep on serving. That shows a degree of confidence that most sales and marketing people don't have.
So Josh, so are there sources or places that you would point people besides UpMyInfluence to, if they were just starting or if they were at that place where they weren't in a position to hire you? Like, where would you direct them or how would you point them?
Yeah. I'm a big fan. Listen, I've got some books that have been just changed my life. One in particular, The Go Givers Sell More by my buddy Bob Berg. This cat should pay me for as much as I promote his books. But listen, it's this same philosophy, right? Where it's, if people can tell that you care more about them than you do your sale, right, then you're going to do so much better in business. And, when it's all about like we all know, like I see people answer questions on Facebook and it's like, we all know when you're just trying to sell your thing. Like it's disguised in an answer. You're not fooling anybody. And we all hate it. We don't like it. Like it's just uncomfortable. It's like going to a networking mixer and here comes Robo Pitch guy, coming your direction and he's getting ready to lay into you about buying his thing. It is icky. So but you gotta relax, man. And so you just Go Givers Sell More is my favorite of the series. He's written 4 of them. There's that one. I'm also a big fan of Mark Schaefer's work. He wrote a book called Marketing Rebellion. And if you really want to understand where consumers' brains are, and again, I don't care who you're selling to, read that book. Okay. That's another really great one. And finally, in terms of mindset, is Atomic Habits. And that book, best book I read all year, last in 2020. And, find something that works and do it over and over and over and over again. I have done the same sales conversation. I call it a sales conversation, right? It's just like this, first date kind of call or whatever that I've probably done 800 of those. And I do the exact same thing. It works. It absolutely works. So when people come at me and they're like, you really need to be on Clubhouse. I'm like, cool, man. Keep on rocking that. Let me know how it goes in 3 months. It's like, I don't get too upset when I miss things like, GameStop stock or whatever, right? Yeah. I'm okay. Yeah. I know what my lane is. Right. And I do not deviate from that lane. Yeah. Like there's things that operationally I don't touch in my company. And other people are like, well, hey, shouldn't you be spending? No, I shouldn't, because I have amazing leaders and they are far better at doing that thing than I am. And I trust them to do that thing. There are experts that I could start doing that work. I don't do it. Professionally with UpMyInfluence, I do one very specific thing. I work with 6-figure consultants and I fill up their sales schedule and I'm really, really good at it. And I'm so good at it, in fact, not me because of my talent, it's just because I've made thousands of mistakes and I obsess on this, my team and I. So collectively, we have a lot of experience on that. So we're so comfortable in doing what we do that we don't even sell the thing anymore. We only now work with joint venture partners. So because I'd much rather have someone that I can work performance-based with, because long-term, we'll each make a lot more money rather than me building out a system and coaching and consulting you and then saying, all right, go get him, Tiger. I love it. I want, we're on our way to, we're on our way by this summer, we'll have 100 clients that we all, that we do a lot of great work with and they sell big ticket items and we make tons of introductions so that they can do that. That said, like I said, we have a lot of requirements, high authority, high ticket offer, great culture fit. Like we vet pretty hard. But if we find a good fit, it's it's hard to lose.
It's like heaven. It's like heaven, right? I love it. I love it. So we kind of wind down here, I'm going to ask you for a final thought. There is one question though that I wanted to ask you before that. So with COVID and with all the things that have happened around it, what significant changes have you made in your business, if any, to deal with just what we're dealing with and what I think we're going to be dealing with in some aspect, moving forward?
Oh yeah, totally. So the world's not going back to the way it was. I mean, right. Some things will. Most things I don't think will. Everything is going to be impacted in a big way. So the business leaders that I chat with who were quick to act and said, wait a minute, there are huge forces playing on the market right now. How can I help out? How can I show up for people? We thankfully I had a belief that the marketing apocalypse was all around us. Again, studying experts like Mark Schaefer, other people that, again, just Google the term marketing apocalypse and learn from people who are like, listen, you have to understand where people's heads are at. We're tired of being advertised to. We're tired of being sold to. It's information overload. And your decision makers that you're trying to sell into are getting more and more and more protective. And the reason I know that's true, because it's true for the person that's listening to me right now. You're doing the exact same thing. So get really, really, really good at that, at understanding where markets are at. Hey, what was the question you asked me? Because I think I started deviating.
No, what were we talking about? Like, what changes have you made?
Changes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. In terms of market forces. Right. Oh my gosh. So listen, the companies that were quick to adapt it's like the gold rush right now. It's like discovering all that gold impacted some businesses very badly, like during the gold rush. But other people said, I'm gonna jump on this. So COVID, really if you're an events company, I'm sorry, it sucks. It really sucks. If you are someone that depended on speaking or going to trade shows, I just hope and pray that you adapted quickly, because I know the pain that you went through. Right. So our role is, we said, listen, we can really adapt this in a way so that we can really help those consultants who depend on those events. Say, you don't have to meet in person. We'll facilitate introductions. We'll leverage platforms like podcasting, and you can meet all the people that you want, and you can start doing a ton of business without ever needing to leave your office or your home.
Yeah, that really is the those who pivoted and looked at the circumstances differently are the ones that are going to, have major opportunity. So Josh, as I kind of wind up and close out, I'd like you to think about one final thought that you'd share. And what I would first offer is you've given us some great information today, and I really appreciate it. And for those listeners, always please go to www.thesuccessascent.com and subscribe and hear about our newest episodes. So as we wind out, Josh, what would you share with us before we close out? Any final thought?
And again, really pay attention to this mindset stuff that I've been talking about, just in terms of, do a gut check on yourself. Why are you doing what you do? Are you there? Are you just doing this because you need to keep your bills paid and have security? So that will come in business. It will. It's an inevitability if, again, I can't emphasize this enough. You put other people's needs first. And because you're not fooling audiences. So listen, 700 TV segments. I've done a ton of media consulting with, high level executives, attorneys, CEOs, that sort of thing. And audiences know exactly what's going on. So you may as well make sure you got your heart set straight, because otherwise you're just making this thing way too hard. When you wake up in the morning and the first thing in your head is, who am I going to sell to today? Listen, I've been there. I know what that's like. Right. When you're like, I don't have enough money to make payroll. I don't have enough money to pay my bills. Been there, done that, my friend. I know exactly what you're going through, but you got to find some way. You got to find some way to change that first question of the day. And it's, who do I get to serve to? Right. Who can I make a positive impact in their life today? And you do that consistently for 100, 200 days. And on the back end of that 100, 200 days, you will be in a completely different position.
Yeah.
You'll never have to ask that, who am I going to sell to again?
I love it. I love it. Well, Josh, thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it. I know you provided our listeners with a ton of value. I know that I've got a ton of notes here that we took. And geez, if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. Listeners, please reach out to Josh at UpMyInfluence.com for his services, because they absolutely are amazing. Thanks again, Josh. Thanks all of our listeners. Have an awesome day, you guys.
Thanks, Pat.